of our here at the Fine Arts Work Center, we're preparing for our new fall session, which begins on Monday, October 9th, with workshops taught by all of our readers tonight, as well as I'll just name a few others that are also teaching this session. The award-winning formalist poet Allison Joseph, editor-in-chief of Tupelo Press Christina Marie Darling, multi-genre hybrid writer Chloe Garcia Roberts, and many, many others. They're all fantastic teachers. That's why we asked them to be part of our program. They're wonderful people, wonderful writers. And we invite you to check out our catalog and to see if there's something for you. I'm sure there is something in poetry, prose of all kinds, memoir, poetry. I already said poetry, memoir, essays, hybrid writing, as I mentioned earlier. There's going to be something for you. And you can keep up with all of the Fine Arts Work Center and 24 Pearl Street's doings by going to our website and signing up for our newsletter. You can also use the link that's being put into the chat right now, sign up link for that newsletter. And what's interesting about that is we have some new 24 Pearl Street programming this fall, which you'll find out more about through those newsletters. So you definitely want to sign up for one. And this new programming, I'm just going to give you a little hint. One of the programs is a free submit-a-thon, which will be facilitated by poet MP Carver, who's the director of the Mass Poetry Festival. And a submit-a-thon is a crowdsourcing, fun, rollicking, in this case, prize giving situation where you all get together, writers of all genres get together and submit their work to various journals together and encourage each other. And as I said, in this case, get prizes for reaching certain goals. And that's going to happen on November 9th. We also have other new programming, which includes a student night reading, which could possibly feature you. And that will be facilitated by poet Jennifer Franklin. And that'll be happening on December 14th, which is at the end of the fall session. So today we have 4 of our wonderful fall faculty who have graciously agreed to share their writing with us. They're going to read in alphabetical order. And as I'm introducing each reader, links to their workshops and to their books will be posted in the chat. So please take a look at those links, because my hope is that you will be supporting these wonderful writers and people by purchasing their books. If you check out the book links, you'll see that they lead to a website for East End Books, which is an independently owned bookstore located near the Fine Arts Work Center in Provincetown. We're very happy to partner with East End Books for Wilder Words and for our in-person store as well. So as we begin, I want you all to make sure you've muted your mic and everything's clear for you and you're ready to receive all this great writing and these wonderful readers, and we're going to get started. So first, I want to introduce to all of you a new faculty member. Actually, everyone here tonight is new faculty as well, Paul Guest. He is the author of 4 poetry collections, most recently, Because Everything is Terrible, and a memoir, One More Theory About Happiness. His writing has appeared in Poetry Magazine, the Paris Review, Tin House, Slate, New England Review, the Southern Review, Kenyon Review, Plowshares, and numerous other publications. A Guggenheim Fellow and Whiting Award winner, he lives in Charlottesville, Virginia. Please join me in welcoming Paul Guest.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you everybody who is here tonight. I'm going to read tonight a group of poems that I've been working on for a few years now. I had a project where I've been writing one poem for each year since 1986. 1986 was the year that I broke my neck in a bicycle accident and rendering me paralyzed from the neck down because of a spinal cord injury. So this first poem I'm going to read is called 1986. And I'll read up into this year, 2023, but it won't be every year because that would be way too many years. But anyway, here I begin. 1986. The world hadn't yet gone up in cartoonish hellfire, which is what I imagined back then. The end was never far. Right now, I could find the street down which my father drove the day after Chernobyl. I could recite in the green shade the swiftness of everything ending, of dominion. I have a mind for whatever is eternal. I'm whistling in the darkness. I'm weeping. I'm transported. Look at how the earth has changed. Look at the fallout of winter. Look at the dead that are beside the road like litter. All too closely, this fact. Summer and scalding heat in my young body, never hurt before that day, just bruised and scraped and dappled by the pox of childhood. Then in a ditch, unbloodied, but nearer to death than I am comfortable admitting. Tonight, tomorrow, next year, imagining brokenness, imagining the radicalization of the flesh made dumb, also numb, and burning in the flames of misapprehension. I thought then everything now is over, like a movie, a song, not sadness, not the weight of things. I was still. Green branches fell over me, and the sun was only burning up. A star that is not a metaphor for anything. When I say to you, I've seen the black floor of the ocean, you should know better than to believe me in that moment. My heart was broken then, and my arms were no good at all. These words are what was left of my breath. I'm so very tired of time and of waiting for nothing to change. In 1987. I began to die then, I think. I was asleep, dreaming of an afternoon, of an afterlife that revives my flesh into what I'd wanted. Why do I think of Ronald Reagan the way one recalls by vague nightmare? The sick heart and terror, which is percussive. Was this the year I saw him at the airport? Men grimly tested my body for hidden death, waving a wand up and down. My left arm healed wrongly, and it was surgery that put it right. Look, if you want, at the pale stippling of scar there. Some nights I wake and everything hurts a little. It's amazing how long a ruined thing will burn. In the night, there are words, though often I've denied their shape, their sound, my soul. Whatever it sings, it's singing. (1993) I want to speak indirectly to you, in the street to you, to be concerned about the weather, to always be mindful of suffering, how light it is, how present, beneath green shade, where banks of midges hum and pulse and are hateful, not to be born, to be nothing of intrigue. I want to drag from thick creek water the stepping turtle that we knew, my brother and me, was a monster, not even hungry, which I think we could have understood and not feared like something out of myth or Harryhausen. At night I moved like that, my legs turned to stone, in dumb pain which is worth nothing. I love the sky, romanticized campus for starlight, your face, your eyes, your hush and breath. I'm speaking not so much of that which is visible, but the hidden, the obscured. The sun goes behind the clouds, we say, when the day darkens just a little, and we flatter our hearts with predictions of rain, of the loss of a day, its light, the future. 1999. Pallets of bottled water on the back porch were one evidence of apocalypse, or the demise of the way of things, or lazily written computer code back in the 80s when I was a boy, and the nightly news was just about all the doom we had stomachs for. When were there even ATMs? I can't recall. I had no money, allowance for $3 a week, and the future, when the world was supposed to end in fire, in glory, in judgment, in vague prophecy, in Jesus and dominion, and I don't know what else, except that it was easy to imagine, ashes and blood, and choirs that sang like a storm. That was easy, still as looking up at the model evening when my phone buzzes with warnings and kids on scooters go past, secure of bones that will never, never break, betray, bend, bruise. I could go back in and lock up whatever can be, and put on music that will blanket all the thunder. The devil is bowling. The devil is beating his wife. Those were stories my mother told me when I was scared and talked too much in the candled darkness of storm outages. My mother, whom I laughed at when she hoarded water at the end of the millennium, convinced that midnight, New Year's, the year 2000, would bring everything down. Power grids and plumbing and society. When just behind or beyond it was wild murder. It was easy to imagine the gutter that stank and the blade that was edged with rust. Easy, that thirst, which would be endless. You knew it, like fear. 2000. By cartoons, I was promised flight in cars that weren't really cars, were they? Aloft in the smog brown air of the future. I'm thinking of apocalypse when I have no reason. Everything is soaked, is flooded. The earth is just about used up. Let me tell you about my Republican life mostly. It is perfect and kind of amazing how unconcerned I am with you. Stay out of my bathroom. Stay out of my green state, which looks like a cross between Missouri and Afghanistan. I'm not sure what you just said in the rain to this cosmology armed by wealth. Once I was filled up with longing, with broken bones, with a song in my fat heart that has no words. Once I waited in the yard beneath a blood-colored moon, and in the darkness there was shrieking. I love animals. I love this place. Whatever it is that is already dead, I love it. 2020. Maybe you need to embrace disappointment, the way you don't sleep at night, dreaming of dry dust and furniture, and the pleasant odor of plywood, and what it feels like to peel skin off of your thumb. Maybe you should begin that perfect novel which will save you, pluck you from the ruddy jaws of a monster that is right there, beyond your failing sight. Not today, Satan, or Ronald Reagan. You learn that often enough, evil is not about nuance. It was raining the day I was born, and years later, I haven't learned much more about the stars. Fire and cold light afloat in the murk of the cosmos. Last night, I read about the doctors who removed 526 teeth from a boy's dying jaw. Hours in, they feared there was no end to it, that his pain was infinite. Their hands trapped, bits of white bone arrayed in a spiral beside his sleeping face. And it was lovely and an evidence of the divine. Well, not really. Maybe you aren't real. Aren't listening to the wind as it goes through the night, like a sad prayer beneath a stippled sky. Maybe, just maybe, things will get better. Give it a year. And I'll read one last poem. And thank you again for everyone who's here. I really appreciate you. 2023. I will fight you over heaven because I was born inside the sweaty fist of history. And for most of my life, old white men have been telling me to look there for a new body. One that continues to sort of get worse, of course, but slowly, slowly, like the way a bad joke degrades in open air. I can remember riding in my father's blue-white Ford with the radio set to the news. Well, not the news, no reportage of the actual world, but a Christian station. And on it, an old man warned us both that Chernobyl had fulfilled a biblical prophecy, that the world was ending and it would be bad. Fire and rain and flood and inscrutable sickness everywhere. To me, this was terrifying. I'd always avoided horror movies, Freddy and Jason and Michael, and no part of me desired this expansion of apocalyptic fear. I think I still live in that moment, my heart in my mute throat. This is about hell. This is about physics, what it means for a whole universe to be devoted to punishment, about redundancy as night comes on and the sky darkens like something is burning up, and it's worth so much, matters, is essential, won't deform to a story's sad shape. Do you believe that? My dad asked me, and never pausing, I lied to your face. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was lovely. That's Yeah, uh, I've read quite a bit of your work, but I haven't encountered some of those poems, so I'm really glad to have been engaged, that you've engaged me and everyone with those lovely poems. Thank you so much. We're gonna move on to our next reader, Jennifer Knox, whose most recent book of poetry is Crushing It. Her poems have appeared 5 times in the Best American Poetry series, as well as in the New York Times, the New Yorker, Granta, and American Poetry Review. And something interesting about her workshop that she's going to be teaching, I think it's a first. It's on humor. If I correct me if I'm wrong. Yes, okay.
No, it is
It's
the
on humor.
intersection of comedy and poetry.
Yes, we need that.
Mhm.
We definitely need that. So join me in welcoming Jennifer Knox.
Thank you, Jennifer. And there's nowhere else I'd rather be than right here, hearing all this wonderful poetry and being with people who love to hear it. So this first poem is about the time I met Myron Floren. And if you're not familiar with Myron Floren, he was the accordion player on the Lawrence Welk show. And if you think that's redundant because Lawrence Welk played the accordion, check him out on YouTube. He crushed the accordion. He was a master. And when I watched him, he wore all these terrific big gold rings. But when I met him, he didn't have the rings on. And I met him at Polish Fest in Milwaukee. And this is a poem about that called Meeting Myron Floren. Oh, and they used to call him Big Red because he was very tall and he had red hair. Meeting Myron Floren. Big Red could have had any woman under the beer tent that hot Polish Fest afternoon, skirts swirling atop the slammin' gams of octogenarian polka groupies. At 81, he was still all man and so cool. I'll never be that cool. His boss, Lawrence Welk, was certainly not that cool. Lawrence always looked purple to me, like he'd been screaming at the Lennon sisters during the Mutual of Omaha commercial. I never wanted kids, but I wanted Myron to make me pregnant. I waited hours in the autograph line, up to my waist in blue hair. His fans didn't want to speed things along. When I finally made it to the front, there he was, tan, grinning, a cold golden beer in his hand, his wavy hair still streaked with red. I'm talking total dynamite, but what happened to your rings? I blurted, all his pimp-tastic bling flashing Morse code as his hands bounded over the accordion keys like a roided-out Russian gymnast. Myron answered to the crowd. An old friend got robbed leaving a gig, but the robbers couldn't get his rings off, so they took his finger. The fans gasped. Myron grinned and winked at me, which flushed a bursting sweat bead down my ass crack. And that's why I don't wear them anymore. Hooray! The crowd cheered. Good call, someone shouted. And everyone laughed, except me, the goon who couldn't tell a body or its wake from the glitz it's shed. I recommend starting off with something light, like Lady of Spain, before you hit the harder stuff. You can really get going on YouTube with the Myron Floren. This is called The Gift. You can tell whether a bird has a mate if there are pin feathers on its head, new feathers that start as stubs full of blood, then enshroud themselves in a white, scaly coat as they grow. Preening releases the feathers, but a bird can't reach the top of its own head. A mate preens that spot, unless the bird is alone in a cage. Pin feathers itch. So I preen my unpaired birds, wrap them in a towel, scritch their heads, and blow till the dandruffy stuff flutters out. They look pretty mangy this morning, I recall as I stare at the side of my mother's face from the back seat. How long has it been since I took her in for a haircut? And her whiskers, she can't see to shave. We're driving back roads, pointing out deer and hawks as she ahs before taking her back to her apartment. Colin calls it traveling gravel. She loves it when he drives, and I sit in the back so she could talk as much as she wants. He always answers her questions. Sometimes I'll go hours without saying a word while she talks and talks. When I was little, she'd bring a book to restaurants and read while I, no doubt, talked and talked. Things children said weren't interesting to her, she told me, and family never had to say, I'm sorry. Yes, we'd hurt each other, but only I've done it on purpose. Did I tell you she bought me this car? It's the most generous gift I've ever received. And here's another poem about getting old. This is about my mom's people, and they're from Southern Illinois, and they've got quite a drawl. So you're going to hear it. It's called Old Women Talking About Death. When did I become one of them? I used to roll my eyes at their gory stories. EMTs found a neighbor at the bottom of her basement steps, a head-to-toe hematoma. Use a cane, I told her. Shrugs. Grandma and the great aunts itemized her injuries. Poor dear, how long till she was found? They told their stories picnicking atop our people at the cemetery, atop all the men in our family who died young. The rest disappeared. Shrugs, so no stories for them. These days, when I call Kay, she tells me about her friends who are dying or have died since we last spoke, and I feel closer to her, an adult. Yesterday, Jay filled me in on M's cancer. It's bad, she whispered. I leaned forward. M's doctors removed her necrotic uterus through her abdomen in 2 jammy black hunks because her insides had decayed into a sarcomatous tar pit. Then her incision dehisced. I cocked my head. She made a starburst motion over her belly button. I've heard that happens with cancer, I said, grateful that Z had described the process to me after her stepmother had died. Now I even have a word for that indignity. Thank God. I hate surprises. This one's called Pretty. A head taller, but a year younger than my girlfriends with their bouncy boobs and full-blown rose bushes. They knew how to squeeze into tight, white, zip-around jeans without getting their pubes snagged in the metal teeth, clenched from tag to belly button. You couldn't wear underwear with those things. My tight white jeans were too short and gave me a camel toe. My clit popped like a knuckle against the seam. In skates, I was even taller, hunched, mouth agape, talking shit, squinting, always this close to falling, flailing, arms out, neck deep in an incoming tide. I couldn't skate sideways or backwards or even fast, so when the lights dimmed and the disco ball lit up, and the boy on black skates, the slick kind you couldn't rent at the rink, with the red toe stops rolled up, and held out his hand to me, He's asking you to skate, my girlfriend said. Duh, dumbass, hawed another hard as she pushed me from behind. I took his hand and gently, in a way that showed he knew I couldn't skate, led me into the current. Nobody Gets Too Much Heaven by the Bee Gees. I looked down at my flabby little tits, all nipple, not at the boy with blonde hair I'd seen at the rink before, skating for hours, backwards and jumps, but always alone. I felt bad for him until I looked up and realized he was much older than me and all the kids around us. The song ended. He asked me to skate again, and I said, no, I'm tired, but thought, you must think I'm pretty fucking stupid, which is exactly the same thing I think now whenever a stranger holds out his hand to me. Curves at the roller rink, true story. And this last poem I'm going to read is about my Aunt Marilyn. And even in a Zoom room, I can assure you that if Marilyn was here right now, we'd all be having a better time. No matter where you are, you can be sure of that. So if you think, are things just, is it not possible to have a good time anymore? If she was here, we'd all be having a better time no matter where we are. And this is called Marilyn, Every Day We Wonder. Marilyn, every day we wonder what you'd think about all this. I imagine you crashing through the inaugural barricades or flying a stolen helicopter into a wildfire with a margarita gripped between your knees. Remember, gridlocked on the 5, you winked at the bearded dude leaning on the asphalt roller? I'd only seen women wink at men in movies. He leered, I might get laid. And you drawled, why don't you get that piece of shit out of the road? Shock splashed across his face. Lock the doors. Crazy bitch, he roared and punched our hood, clueless how close he was to getting his ass shot. We found the loaded gun under your mattress. Smith & Wesson, cowgirl style, swirly pearl handle, and the serial number filed off. We like to take it out at parties. What a cute gun. We also found several transistor radios and a box of old weed. Cheers, Auntie. With one phone call, you scared my scary Brooklyn landlord into fixing my deadbolt. You were 6 states away and a 72-year-old woman. There's a pack of kids down the street in a house that's falling apart. We never see an adult. No matter how cold or dark it is, they're always playing outside with a new puppy. We have no idea where the old puppies have gone. But if you were here, we know there'd be no more of this new puppy bullshit. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much.
The
Yeah.
lights turned off of me.
Oh. I'm thinking about those puppies now. We have no idea where the old puppy has gone. Wow. Okay. Thank you so much, Jennifer. So now we're gonna shift on over to another new faculty member and reader, Nathan McClain. He's here in Massachusetts, actually, same state I'm in, and his poetry collections include Previously Owned, which was longlisted for the 23rd Annual Massachusetts Book Award, as well as Scale. Both are from Four Way Books. He is the recipient of fellowships from the Frost Place, Sewanee Writers Conference, and the Breadloaf Writers Conference. A Cave Canem Fellow, his poems and prose have recently appeared or are forthcoming in Plume, Poetry Anthology 10, The Common, Guest House, Poetry Northwest, and Zocalo Public Square, among others. He teaches at Hampshire College and serves as poetry editor of the Massachusetts Review. Join me in welcoming Nathan McClain.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. Really grateful to be here reading amongst these fantastic poets. Um, I am sad to report that these poems will probably not be as funny as Jennifer, so I'm glad that she like set us up at least for the lightness that she mentioned before the fall. Um, this is Myth of the Bear. That winter, snow dusted the hemlock, each spiked cone. Snow salted my hair. It was that long, that winter. A black bear cub curled beside me, hers a dark, honeyed sleep. If this were a fable, one could sleep the whole winter without interruption. That's how long it felt as the bear cub and I kept each other warm. She had no clamp, no shackle or trap marks in her fur. Of course, I checked. Carefully, I peeled fat, gray ticks from her back, but I was gentle then. Sometimes it was my turn to wade waist deep into the river, and that was fine. If we were lucky, there were fish, though no fish would consider this luck. Sometimes the bear cub seemed to stalk a smell, sniffing. I assumed her mother, but it could have been anything that winter. You wonder what there is to learn here, other than this is not a fable, other than whenever I woke, the bear was always a bear again. The world is full. I saw the wolf outside the window, in the backyard, near the park bench, nearly stripped of all its paint. Or I thought it was a wolf I saw, insomuch as I even called Wolf, Wolf through every room of the farmhouse. It was quite the spectacle. False alarm, one might say, as if explanation were a kind of comfort. I was not comforted. My panic startled me, the way one can be startled by something he's read in a book he's forgotten he owns, that he can't in the slightest remember buying, while thumbing over the other spines, all those titles huddled together there on the shelves. Out of nowhere, we say in these cases, where did this come from? How had I missed this? The wolf seemed to come out of nowhere. Or maybe from a book I remember read to me as a child, some cautionary tale, a window capable of being looked in, seen through, if you were brave. No, it was not a wolf outside the window. It was a coyote, but with a wolf's bulk, its metallic flash of fur, its appetite. I admit, I was afraid. Not for myself, but for the chickens. I looked out the window because the chickens clucked so madly, like children at a school running amok. The hens flapped at the glass. The chicks instinctively slipped out of sight into the taller, wet grass. No, it was not a wolf. Of course, I knew the difference. I'd been a boy, been small enough to be clenched in a wolf's jaw, though I never was. I was safe. I wanted to save them, but the commercial in the background insisted the window for savings was closing fast, then faded to black, as they do when they're done. The wolf scattered them the way feathers can be scattered, torn from the body, or the way children are drilled even in grade school to scatter. Shh. We prepared for this now. I called Wolf. I clapped at the glass, which I've been told makes a difference, and I wanted things to be different. To the chickens, it must have looked as if I took delight in their predicament, and who would tell them otherwise. The world is full of suffering, it's true. Why not delight in that it's yours, not mine, for once? The coyote slunk away, or the wolf did, something dead, I thought, between its teeth. I was afraid, though I went out to look for what was missing, what was lost to the woods. 10 chickens, 2 chicks. I counted them, like I tally all loss, scattered the way one might scatter birdseed in the yard, or how one might scatter a child's ashes to the ocean's indifference. I'd been a boy, lost among the woods, as in some fable. Or maybe not lost, just the shade of tree bark. Not a wolf, though to the chickens, the distinction hardly matters. Here, chickie, chickie. No one had bothered to name them. To name them, we thought, we believed, would make them harder to kill and eat. But how wrong we were. I believed I could save them, or that saving them meant I loved them, that my love was good for something. Just 2 more poems this evening. Thank you all for your time and attention. This is Labor Day, Brighton Beach. How lovely at last to have nothing to do but sit, shirtless in my collapsible chair, reading Gerald Stern's American Sonnets, and lovely to sit, beer in my lap, just a little tipsy. Lovely, too, to ignore beauty or desire or whatever, the young woman unfolding her nylon tent, smacking each stake into the sand with her sandal's heel, slipping discreetly into her swimsuit. Though I could watch the plane zip past, tugging a banner for Wicked, there was still time to see if you wanted, or the sailboat glide slowly by. And it was a good day for sailing, a good day. So I didn't have to think about sorrow or loss, though, let's face it, I did. How not to? The old man missing a left leg. Not how it happened or when, but if it gets easier, you know, living with it. Crutch snugged under each armpit, and Jill had been gone a long time to warm her goat curry. Then, farther out, a jet ski, like a straight razor, slits the water's surface. Carmen already asleep under a sun hat. And I'm going to close this evening with a poem entitled The Ferry. And that is the ferry as in the boat. And thank you all for your attention. I'm excited to hear Jason's work as well as the other poets this evening. The Ferry. I still had a lover. Maybe let's start there. I hitched a ride to Boston where I missed the ferry by what seemed like minutes. But time can work that way in the mind. I was in love, or wanted to be in love, and there was distance everywhere, is maybe a better way to put it. Though, what exactly was it? I hadn't given it a designation. I looked for the boat. It wasn't there. Only the dock, a few seagulls, a blue distance. If I was supposed to wave goodbye, I missed my chance, though what did I care? So in love with solitude. At least I was at the time. It seemed easy, being lonely, watching time lapse, that boat long dispatched. I'd missed it, yet there I was, waving like a fool in love, perhaps, at what? I couldn't tell. I wasn't there when the ferry left, remember? I missed it. Or they went on without me. The distance made it hard to see clearly where distance ended, or if it did. Or I didn't make it in time to see. Maybe time was against me. I missed the ferry. I had no money. The ferryman said it was fine and smiled at me. Smiled. There was the shore and me wanting to be in love, though I wasn't. I carried what I could. Love? I didn't have room for it. In the distance, I swore my solitude waved. I missed it where I was headed, sure, but there was hardly time for that. The boat was early. I boarded it and stood on the stern. Part of me was missing, but there had to be a cost. That part I missed. My mind, a rough sea I might have loved watching lap were I not so inside it. My mind, the fish too, the shore distant as the voice I thought I heard in it, as time itself. The ferry was late. I was there, hoping I missed it. I didn't trust the distance, lovely as it seemed. I didn't trust time, nor where it carried me. I knew what was there. Thanks very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, Nathan. You're making me think about I don't know if the ferry was the ferry from between Boston and Provincetown.
It's the ferry from Woods Hole to Martha's Vineyard.
Oh, okay. All right. I guess I'm used to that one ferry going between those two places. Thank you so much. It was wonderful to hear you read. So we're coming on to our last reader. And as I said before, a new faculty member is Jason Schneiderman, whose fifth collection of poems, Self-Portrait of Icarus as a Country on Fire, is forthcoming from Red Hen Press in 2024. So we should all look for that in the new year. His poems and essays have appeared in the Penguin Book of the Sonnet and 3 installments of Best American Poetry. His awards include the Emily Dickinson Award from the Poetry Society of America, Jerome Shestack Award from American Poetry Review, and a Fulbright Fellowship from the Fulbright Foundation. And I believe he's on that Fulbright Fellowship right now. He's a co-host of the Painted Bride Quarterly Slush Pile podcast and has been a guest host for The Slowdown. Jason is professor of English at the Borough of Manhattan Community College and teaches in the MFA program for writers at Warren Wilson College. Join me in welcoming Jason Schneiderman.
Oh, thank you so much. Jennifer, Sarah, thank you so much for putting this together. And I don't think you know that like Jen and Nathan and I go pretty far back. So this has been like a real joy. And I've always wanted to meet Paul. And
I
these
didn't know
readings
that.
were I was actually thinking I was at a event earlier tonight because I'm in the future in England right now, and so I could go to like an evening event and be at another evening event that was taking place before the evening event that I attended. But yeah, I was thinking about the space I was in just made me think about Jen, do you remember at CBGB's when you read The Condiment Rack in My Car? It was a highlight. Anyway,
I believe you. I believe you though.
I'm going to jump into the reading. I'm actually going to read from my last collection, Hold Me Tight. I'll read a very long poem and then shorter poems. Anger. When I was angry, I kept asking how anger works. No one understood my question. Friends thought I was joking or being obtuse. Friends would say, what do you mean how anger works? Anger is anger. What are you asking? And I would say, well, is anger a finite material? Is anger like hydrogen and there's simply a certain amount of it in the universe? Is there a zero sum of anger, a law of the conservation of anger? And can we pass it back and forth? Can you take my anger and leave me less? Can I take your anger and then have more? Is anger a renewable resource like trees or coral reef, subject to natural rhythms and mass die-offs, forest fires and warming tides, cycles of growth and depletion? Is anger something you deplete like money, that you save or spend and is gone as it goes, or something replenished like ejaculate, more on the way? as soon as you send some off? Or is anger like ova, each egg coming on its own schedule until they run out? Is anger like pus, a response to a wound that you can drain or that you can heal? Or is anger like a gas you can vent because it is compressible but combustible? Or is anger like water that will explode the water balloon unless you tie it off at the right time? I thought someone had to know the answer because I was consumed by anger. It was under everything I did. I felt it all the time, and it never departed. I didn't have a breakdown, though I asked friends if what I was experiencing was a breakdown. No, they said. A breakdown looks only like a breakdown. And I looked okay, but no one knew how to help me. And I told a friend that I wasn't okay, and she told me that I was okay, but the anger was there all the time, like a pair of shoes that were always between me and the ground I walked on. And I kept asking everyone how anger works. Can you drain it? Can you vent it? Can you stop it? Can you heal it? Can you trade it? Can you sell it? And no one knew what I was asking until finally someone asked me to describe what I was feeling. And she said, "You're not talking about anger. You're talking about rage." And I realized that I've never experienced anger. I've only known rage, which helped a lot, which explained why I could only think about striking out and then not strike out, which explained why I knew which plants in my garden could be made into poisons and how, which explained why my daydreams turned into elaborate fantasies about harming people until I did the things I imagined to myself. And listen, please, listen, I knew it was bad and I wanted out, but I couldn't write my way out of it. And I couldn't think my way out of it. And I couldn't love my way out of it. And I couldn't read my way out of it. And I thought I would live with it forever, that I would contain it at whatever price I had to pay. And I'm telling you this, and I need you to listen because I'm saying that I do understand what it's like to want everyone else to suffer as much as you are suffering. And I understand what it's like to want to die, both to contain the pain of rage and to spread the pain of rage. And when you read of this mass murder or that suicide bombing, no, these killers are not inhuman or monstrous, but rather that they are weak vessels for rage, that they are balloons that have burst with their rage, that they are pipe bombs made of flesh and bone. And peace is what I want more than anything else. But peace is so fragile, so easy to take, so easy to lose, and so they take it from you to feel less alone. And I'm out of it now because I thought I had done it to myself, but I didn't. I see that now. I'm closer to peace. I'm further from rage. I'm a bomb no longer ticking, but I was a bomb. Hold me tight. I was a bomb. Hold me tight. This book is organized around a number of sequences, and I'm going to read some poems from the final sequence that is of Last Things, which I think will become self-explanatory. The last book. The last book tries to remember the last time someone read it, tries to remember if someone has ever read it at all. The last book isn't sure what it's about because it can't open its own pages, the way you can't open your own chest and you've never seen your own organs. The last book has no other books to ask about what it feels like to be read because that's what it means to be the last. And the last book doesn't even know that it's just zeros and ones, hurtling through space sent into the universe by people who died millennia ago on a planet that's long since been eaten by the sun it revolved around. The last book still thinks it's paper and ink, bookboard and cloth, and if anyone ever picks up the signal, maybe it will be again. The Last Mirror. The Last Mirror was put on trial. The Last Mirror was accused of inciting vanity, of lacking originality, of encouraging vice, of being nothing more than a parrot or an echo. The Last Mirror's defense was that Echo had shown devotion to the man she loved, and that parrots love their pirates. The last mirror insisted that vanity, like greed, can be good, because really every man should love himself. The last mirror argued that vice is a lot of fun every now and then, and that imitation can also be a form of love. Why, even Freud, that old master, could not distinguish between the desire to possess and the desire to be. The last mirror lost the case. As you may have guessed, it was a show trial. The judge said that love is not a defense, and even ejected the viewer who laughed when the prosecutor asked the mirror in a froth of rage and anger, "What's love got to do with it?" entirely unaware of the song by the same name. The judge ordered the last mirror shattered into 100,000 pieces on the courtroom floor. When the bailiff had shattered the last mirror, each one of the pieces proclaimed that now it was the last mirror, however small the piece might have been. The judge held the prisoners in contempt and called every piece a liar. The last form. What you're describing, my teacher said, is a circle. And as they do not exist in the material realm, it is not merely foolish to think of one, but actually unethical. He explained to the class how for tragic millennia, there were these terrible time wasters known as philosophers, and how they tried to convince everyone that there were things in the world that were not in the world. Of course, they had long since been put to death, and while we kept their memory alive merely to avoid their mistakes, we should never forget at what cost we might make those mistakes as well. This was almost 60 years ago. I am an old man now, and I have fathered children, and I have worked a very long time, and I have retired, and now I tell stories to my grandchildren, and I know that I am forgetting more and more. I tell myself the story of that day as a ritual, to remember who I am, to fight the fog that comes. This is the one thing I have never told anyone. I believe in the circle. I may be the last, but I believe. Does everyone remember Ace of Base? I can't ask, you can't respond. Anyway, hopefully you remember Ace of Base. If you don't, you can YouTube it after the Myron recordings. The last Ace of Base enthusiast. The last Ace of Base enthusiast wishes she could live in the 1990s. The last Ace of Base enthusiast imagines a world where it was impossible to avoid Ace of Base, where it would be playing over the stereo as you entered a convenience store or when you went to the bank. At first, she was annoyed when her friends asked her what the songs meant, or tried to pin her down on precisely what the sign was, or insisted on knowing why the main character was crying in Don't Turn Around. Later, she was frustrated when her friends refused to listen to her answers, and she had to write a book explaining all of the lyrics and the multiple permutations by which they might be understood. No one bought the book. So she started making dioramas of the convenience stores and banks in the 1990s where you couldn't avoid Ace of Base songs. Her show of dioramas is well received and highly regarded as an example of the new retrospectivists, though she is consistently hurt by the pride that critics take in being able to endure the hideous cacophony of screeching vocals that the artist has dredged up from the past that we remember with great pain, but as she has shown us, forget at our own peril. Once she thinks, people would have bought the CD in the gift shop on the way out of the museum back in the 1990s when there were CDs. And I like to end my readings with a poem for Fanny Imlay, the often forgotten half-sister of Mary Shelley and the other daughter of Mary Wollstonecraft. In memoriam, Fanny Imlay, 1794 to 1816. When you ask yourself how people survived the 19th century, before soap and antibiotics, before anesthesia and electricity, remember that not all of them did. Remember Fanny Imlay in her hotel room, drafting her suicide note before drinking laudanum. Remember the innkeeper who found her corpse and tore her name from the bottom of the note so that she could be buried in Christian ground. Remember Fanny Imlay's final words, offering the blessing of forgetting that such a creature ever existed as I remain torn away. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Jason. Thank you. Wow. Wow, everybody is amazing here. So feel free to unmute yourself, everyone, and just so we could hear the clappings, because that was just awesome, you know? Yeah, that was amazing. Thank you so much for the love that you give and the attention that you give to all of us as an audience, and to your poems. It really shows you are all masters of the work, for sure. So we're here at the end of this reading, but not the end of all things 24 Pearl Street. Again, check out our catalog, especially check out the readers' workshops. And remember, November 9th, we're having another event, the Submit-a-thon. If you want to know more about that, feel free to email me. I can tell you what a Submit-a-thon is and how much fun it is and how much you can get out of it. jjean@fawc.org. That's my email. And also we're having a student night, which is a student reading of anyone who's attended a fall session workshop on December 14th. And there'll be more information coming out about both these events and all our workshops through our newsletter. So please sign up. And we're signing off now. Keep reading, keep writing, keep dreaming, and have a very beautiful night. Thank you.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
You're all amazing. Thank you.